Okay, should be live now. Can you hear me still?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Cool. All right. Hey, everyone. It's Dorka, and it's been a while, but it's kind of cool because I'm back now after a long time with Perry Edwards, who was actually the first person I interviewed ever on this channel. And it's cool. We're coming back because he's got a new Kickstarter going on right now. And I'm going to let him tell you a bit more about it and explain things in more detail.
I'm Perry, your friendly neighborhood mangaka in the making, as I've been introducing myself, bringing to you a little old battle manga called Cold Blooded Volume 1 Conviction. And in 2020 of last year, I launched and funded my first ever Kickstarter, successfully funded and fulfilled it, of this book. And then I wanted to get some social proof. I wanted to get someone saying something positive about it. And so I got the review. He didn't say one positive thing, and I didn't agree with everything he said, but among them, he said the lettering was terrible. And I looked at it, and I found out, and it's like, oh, the lettering is terrible. And the lettering is like a big thing. Apparently, lettering can like make or break a book. And the problem is, with bad lettering, peers, other people in the comic book industry that might look down on you just because of that. Lettering can enhance the art, or it can make it look worse. And when you're trying to get your book out there, you don't just want to impress. You want to impress like everyone, right? You want to impress casual readers or people who don't read comic books, but you also want to make a good impression on your peers. And so this is a way that I could amend that, and is also for me. And I was a little bit embarrassed about my book after that, but this is a way I can present something that I'm proud of. And so that's why it's called Cold Blooded Volume 1. Better letters make a better battle manga. And I'm calling it Cold Blooded Volume 1, the definitive version, because there's not going to be another version after this that I would consider the definitive version. I might do another version in color or something, but this is going to be the de facto version that I'm going to be printing and selling from now on in future Kickstarters.
Cool. Let me quickly pull up. Oh, how did I do it before? Give me a sec. What I want to do, share screen. Is pull up your Kickstarter, because there's 10 days left to go on your Kickstarter, which is here. You can see. And so I guess what I want to ask is, well, for starters, when did you start fixing all the lettering? How long did that take you? Start there and answer. I'll be right back. I just want to grab my copy of Cold Blooded, which you sent to me. I was lucky to get this copy before the Kickstarter launched, I believe. But yeah, go ahead and explain that, and I'll be right back.
Okay. The relettering was a process and took some time. Just like going back and coloring a comic would be like a major overhaul. So is lettering. And first, I had to learn about lettering before I could go through, and that was the thing. I went through some things. There was one method some creators showed me that if you pulled in, just take a screenshot or something in Photoshop and then lower the opacity, and you can just imitate it. But it doesn't really teach you. You don't really learn the rules or conventions of lettering, because there are conventions. And so I actually, just like I took a course in Comics Launch to learn about launching Kickstarters, I took a course with Comics Experience, a 6-week course to learn about lettering. And there I learned about the actual conventions of lettering. And there's more to lettering than just the text and the speech balloons. And that's what they're called. People may want to call them speech bubbles, but that's a proper name. That's one of those things, a speech balloon. And so I learned all about that, and I found out lettering is way more. It's like the dimensions. It's sizing the work. It's the balloons as well as the lettering, and it's the sound effects, of course, the SFX, and all my SFX, all my sound effects are drawn, so I just left those in. But what I primarily changed was the text and the balloons. And when I made my own book, when I made Cold Blood the first time, I made the foolish decision of making my own font, and I think that's what really made the lettering bad, because there are fonts that are specifically made for comic books that you should just probably use. Because one thing, the leading, I found out what leading is. The leading was way too big on my books. I have my older copy here.
For sure.
Even like the leading on the spine where I put my name, Perry Edwards, the gap is way too big. Can't even fit all the way on the spine.
If you guys can see my copy, see there's a difference.
Yeah, the space between the space between the letters are replaced the fonts.
Ah, that's better. Yeah.
That was just one of the things I found about anchoring. You can anchor the text to a panel, and I was like, manga does that a lot, and I did kind of imitate that, but I didn't know what it was called, right? And I learned about the air in balloons, how much space you leave between the balloon and the text, and you can do a little air, you can do a lot of air, but you need to make it consistent. And lettering is very important to me. It's not. I even got someone else for a time to letter for me, but I didn't. And this was before I took the comics experience course. But I didn't quite like everything that they did, because they weren't lettering it like a manga. They were lettering it in the conventional American comic book way to letter. And so there were some things they did that I liked, and some things that they did I didn't. And because after I took the course, I learned about what was conventional lettering. And because of that, I could take things that I see in manga and things that are conventional, because some of those things still apply to manga. Because there are letters that have to re-letter manga after it's translated. So I could make a good marriage between the two to make something that I want to see, because the manga needs to be lettered like a manga. The lettering to me is just as important as the art and everything else, and it can also help determine the flow of things.
Cool. I wanted to say, I pulled up, so I've got the Kickstarter page so people can see it, but I wanted to show this because for one of your, well, for starters, this is my copy, which I purchased before the Kickstarter launched. And so I got the new version, which was pretty cool. And I got it signed by Perry. He also sent me a card, a business card, as well as a sticker with mine. And I just wanted to show you guys that to compare, because if you support the Kickstarter, you obviously can probably get these, but definitely get more rewards, which is pretty exciting, which is why you would definitely want to support it if you want to get some extra stuff to support this Kickstarter. And it looks like you got a holographic cover happening here.
Yeah, and so I offer a couple variants on my Kickstarter, just because lettering, the layman or the average person may not really care all that much about the lettering. Like I said, that was mostly for me and my peers, but I'm sure there are people that know next to nothing about lettering or read a comic before and read my book and saw nothing wrong with it. But so if lettering isn't enough for you, if you already got the book with the original lettering and that's not enough of an incentive, well, I offer variants, and you can get the variants by themselves, or you can get them with the book. In fact, I added, because someone just wanted the shiny cover, the foil, and so I just added a new pledge, and for $20 you can get variant A or variant B. And then for $25, you can get the book, variant A or variant B. And of course, you get the PDF with that as well. And like you said, I plan to send like a sticker with every one of them that's a physical copy.
Awesome. And I also forgot to mention that this is like a heavy book, which is cool. I love that it's weighted. Did you go with the same printer as before, or even who did you use to get the variant cover, especially the shiny variant?
Okay, yeah, so I'm glad you asked that. I did use a different printer. It's a small printer called Villain. Let me bring up. They have a TikTok and a Facebook page, and I believe they're called Villain something Designs.
Okay.
Hero and Villain Designs. There we go. I didn't want to butcher their names. If you search Hero and Villain Designs on TikTok or Facebook, and I don't know if they're on Instagram or Twitter, but if you search them up, you can find them. And I'm friends with the guy on Facebook, and
awesome.
I messaged him first because I heard about him from Joey Panetta, the guy that made Troubles Back.
Yeah, I think I have him on Instagram.
Yeah, and I found out about it from him, and he was saying that he was telling me he could print the book cheaper, and while it wasn't exactly cheaper than Comics Wellsprings, he can do a lot more than they can do.
That's
and that
good.
It's a higher quality printer. The turnaround is a lot less, and I don't even have to get the minimum 25. He told me he can do like 10 books for a minimum print.
That's nice.
Yeah, and he threw in the foil as a freebie, and when he did that, I was like, oh, this gives me a good idea. I could use this. I could just make this a variant for my Kickstarter, and so I'm glad he threw that in and gave me that idea. And he's probably the printer I'm going to use moving forward, unless like I get to a point where I order so many copies that it's too much for him. But hopefully, like he'll grow and become a bigger printer as well, and
that's cool.
It won't have that problem. And I was gonna say something else, but I already forgot.
No, that's cool. That's Oh, and for those of you who see, I scrolled to the top. It's the same Kickstarter page, but as you can see, there's actually 9 days to go now, which changed from, I mean, it's just probably the time changed. So there's only 9 days left. Be sure to check out the Kickstarter if you haven't seen it yet, and share it. Pledge if you can, especially if you haven't picked up a copy of Cold-Blooded yet, because at least now you'll get like the latest and greatest version of it, as well as possibly a holographic variant cover.
And just for people that don't know anything about it, I should probably tell them the log line or something.
Yeah, go for it.
And basically, Cold-Blooded is a shonen or / seinen battle manga. Think battle manga or shonen just as like kind of the equivalent of like a superhero comic. And it's centered around fighting and action. And this contains the first 8 chapters, which is like the first arc. This is kind of Rembrandt's origin story, if you will. And Cold-Blooded is about Rembrandt Snart, who misses his dad. And while holding out hope after his father's disappearance 5 years ago, he discovers latent reptilian abilities brought out by a shadowy figure determined to end his life. And I wanted to launch this Kickstarter before I do a book 2. And after this, I really hope to hit the ground running and start putting out chapters again, and don't stop and not go on any hiatuses. And yeah, that's it.
For sure. Well, yeah, okay. So, question about your Kickstarter: what is the lowest tier reward that people can pledge? What's, I guess, the middle one, and then what's the highest tier? What are What are some of the rewards? And I can scroll through if you want to also talk about them.
For $7, you can get the definitive digital copy, which is just the PDF, Cold Blooded. I guess for 15 is like what I would consider the core reward because it's just the book. But really, more people might opt for the $25 because then they can get variant A with it. And
here it is.
And the highest is just a retailer bundle, which no retailer has backed yet. I messaged some retailers, but I eventually will have a. I don't expect any people that's not a retailer to get that, but I mean that'd be great if they did. But there eventually, when I reach certain percentages, I will reveal more pledges. In fact, I've reached 38. I reached over 30% funding today, which I have a new pledge I haven't revealed yet. I need to go on the page, edit it, and make an update. Also, you can pledge without a reward. Back it because you believe it. You can pledge for as little as $1 or well over $100, whatever your heart desires.
Cool. Well, so kind of in general, it's been a while since we last talked. Other than catching you on Instagram and things like that, I guess what's been happening? You know, how's life going in general? What else is happening with Cold Blooded other than relettering the first volume? Anything else happening in there that you're hoping people will check out because that'll be coming up soon, I'm sure.
Well, I went full time at my job after about being part time around 2 years. And I'm full time now. I'm on a full time night shift. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, imagine night shift. Yeah.
So that happened, and I guess maybe what I really want to do after the Kickstarter is I need to re-letter the remaining chapters because most of book 2 is already done.
Nice.
And I know I said I projected it to be about 10 or 12 chapters. It might be less just because I'd like to aim for it to be around 200 pages.
Yeah.
And just with the chapters I have now, it might already meet 200 pages. So
nice.
I'll just, after I re-letter them all, I'll just have to figure that out. I might add an additional chapter or 2.
Cool.
And I feel like the next arc, I might have to split between 2 books, meaning but the next arc, book 2 will be like the first half of the next arc, and then by book 3, I can wrap that arc up. And then when I start releasing chapters, I'll be more active on Patreon because I do have a Patreon, and I plan to update all my social media sites, like as far as Webtoon and Tapastic, and my Patreon. I plan to update those with the new lettering as well of the first 8 chapters, at least, and then later the other chapters. But I already uploaded the first 7 chapters, relettered on my Patreon, and those posts are public, so you could go and look at all the relettered pages up to the 7th chapter. I haven't uploaded, replaced the 8th chapter yet.
Right. I wanted to. Oh, I was gonna say something about. I forgot now. I guess. Well, watching any anime lately? Anything kind of helping you and inspire you while you're working on Cold Blooded, or just in general? What are you enjoying these days?
Yeah, I'm watching Cowboy Bebop on Netflix right now.
Same here. Nice.
Yeah, and then I'd never seen it before, and so it doesn't necessarily like inspire me, but I am enjoying it. I watched season 1. I watched all of Jujutsu Kaisen, and I like it, but I feel like people are overhyping it.
Okay.
Yeah, because people are making out to be like this masterpiece. I'm like, it's good, but I don't see it being a
Hmm.
masterpiece. Um, but I don't really get the power system in it. Um,
Okay.
and then of course I've been keeping up with One Punch Man and My Hero. Since those are battle mangas, and I really enjoy those, as well as Dragon Ball Super, and those. I read Berserk, and I
Yeah.
watched. Yeah, I got all 8 volumes. I read all of Berserk, and I watched the movies, and then I watched the show.
Oh,
Um, because I wanted to get everything and compare and contrast. And like when I was reading Berserk, I was like, oh, this makes me want to make something. This makes me want to
that's
do
cool.
something. It fires me up. When I get something I really like, I read it or watch it, and it's like, oh, this makes me want to work on my own stuff.
Right.
So I certainly get that.
Definitely. So in doing this Kickstarter, I guess what are you how are you, keeping the momentum going? Because you got a few days to go, but how have you been keeping the momentum going?
Um, I think it's very funny you named this "How to Survive on Kickstarter"
Yeah.
because this Kickstarter has been kind of rough.
Mm.
Because it didn't really start well. Uh, to keep in line with the Kickstarter, it's a campaign and it lasts so many days, and it's like you're a politician or like a missionary on deputization. You know, because a missionary would go to church getting support, or a politician goes from venue to venue garnering support and rallies to get votes. And it's like Kickstarter is not so much about the money. I could easily fund and print the books myself and just sell them at cons. Money's not the problem. Money's not the issue yet, anyway. Um, but it's about support. It's about getting it funded.
Yeah.
And um, that I had this campaign planned, and uh, with Kickstarters, there's what's called doors open or doors closed,
Hmm.
meaning like when a store opens, there are going to be people that the first time, as soon as the doors open, they're there. They're there before the store opens at 7 a.m. or whatever. And then there's people that are doors closed. They come in last minute, 5 minutes
Yeah.
before closing. And I remember when I was a sacker and I worked at the grocery store. We had this new manager, and sometimes there'd be people that showed up after we closed and the doors were locked, and they were asking or sometimes begging to come in. And this manager, she kind of had pity on them and would let them in, and they'd say, "Oh, I only need to get 5 or 10 items," uh, and they'd be quick, but they got way more than 5 or 10 items. They come back with a basket full of stuff, and I'm just like, "Come on, this is what we get for
Uh
taking pity on you." But there are people just like with Kickstarters, there's going to be people that back right at the start and people that back right in the last 72, 48, and 24 hours. And with my
Definitely.
Kickstarter, I didn't have a strong start at the
Mm.
doors open. Usually with Kickstarters, there's something called the dead zone, which happens in the middle of the campaign. You're talking about momentum, and this is when momentum kind of dies down a bit, and this is when your milestone bonuses are supposed to take effect. Basically, when you reach 30, 50, and 80% funding, you reveal new pledges. It's supposed
Hmm.
to incentivize new backers or maybe existing backers to change their pledge. Because if they
Yeah.
change their pledge to a higher price, then a higher price will just help you get to your funding goal faster. And this helps keep momentum up. But I didn't have a lot of backers right out the gate. Instead, they just it's like I hit the dead zone right at the start.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't really know why. I planned out social media posts on TikTok that I posted everywhere else as well 7 days prior. And I made over like 30 TikToks, as you've seen some of them. And I upload those. I'm going to upload them every day of the campaign. So far, I don't know that anyone's backed my Kickstarter because of the posts I made. But it's social media, and that's what's called cold traffic you can't control. But your email list is traffic you can control. That's the thing I'm really at a loss at, because I was emailing them quite regularly prior to launch.
Yeah.
Which you want to do. You want to email them regularly no matter what. But several months before launch, I was emailing about weekly or bi-weekly. And so by the time I launch Kickstarter, I send that first email, there should be, some people coming from the email list, but I didn't have that many. And, there are some things to consider, like statistically, it may not bode well, but statistics might change because with everything that's happened in the world, like comics are doing very good on Kickstarter, for instance. So that's another reason I have a hard time understanding. But there are just other things to consider. Maybe it is because of the economy and other things. People are just maybe they might be down on their luck or something. But the one thing I do have to look forward to is those doors closed people, because that still might be the thing to save me. But that's not going to stop me from trying to get as many backers as I can before the end, because I don't want to rely just on that.
No, definitely.
I want enough back. I want to bolster my project enough so that because the more backers you get, or the higher the goal is, I think that will only serve to attract more backers, right? Because no one wants to fund a project that has, if they think it's not going to fund or get so little backers.
Right.
And so the more backers I get, that will hopefully look more alluring to other people. And the good thing about Kickstarter is people can follow your project or pre-save it before launch. Because I think I have like maybe 14 or so people that have my project saved. And that's very good, because even though Kickstarter doesn't help you a whole lot with directing traffic to your page, as long as you can help direct people to your pre-launch page or get them to follow your page during the Kickstarter, then that means that Kickstarter will automatically send them emails when I think you do an update, and when it reaches 72 hours and 48 hours and 24 hours and like 8 hours before the end. And that's really good, because those doors close people that are just waiting. They're like, don't know if they're back yet. They're going to be looking at that as like, oh, this is going to make it or break it. Now I'm going to have to be faced with a decision to back this or let it pass and miss out.
Right. Definitely. No, gosh, a lot of what you're saying is some really good advice to keep in mind for anyone who is who wants to do a Kickstarter for their comic or manga in the near future, especially the stuff you're talking about, like the dead zone, the closing doors, opening doors, is all stuff to consider and be prepared for your launch. So I'm actually glad we're catching you in the middle, a little bit in the middle of your current Kickstarter.
And I learned this all from the Comics Launch course. You can listen to as many podcasts and interviews as you want, right? But all they really have is just tips and tricks. But it's not never the same as a full comprehensive course. Even listening to the Comics Launch podcast, which if you're on the fence about, you should just give it a listen anyway, because I started listening to it before I went into the course, and that way it'll help you. Any misconceptions or myths you might believe about Kickstarter or crowdfunding will be dismissed, or you'll find the truth about it, and it'll teach you, just like with comic book lettering. I learned the conventions of lettering. You can learn the conventions of launching a successful Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Well, this is interesting. It's kind of two things because one, this is technically is your second Kickstarter campaign, but it's for not some kind of for the same book. Did you have any reservations about doing that? What made you decide that, yeah, I want to Kickstart and get this new version out?
Oh yeah, I did have some reservations, and if you look on my risks and challenges there on my Kickstarter page, there's a tab for risks and challenges. I list that as one of them. That this is going to be the same book again, so it might be, most backers, Kickstarters usually return backers, but the same backers may not want to return for just the same book. It's not a sequel. And I wanted to look at this as a challenge. And I thought, well, I'll challenge myself and see if I can really grow my audience. And I kind of took that attitude that, you have something you want to do, launch it, because I thought it might be weird if I came out with a book 2 and I just kind of bookend. Oh, and there's volume 1 and it's re-lettered and just bookend. I thought that would be weird, and I wanted to give it its own launch. I thought it deserved it. I thought it deserved its own launch. Looking back, maybe that's a better idea. Maybe that would have been better to just bookend it, because I've backed some other Kickstarters where I notice creators do make actually some changes to their volume 1s or previous books, but they don't give a whole launch. They don't dedicate a whole launch to it. So maybe that's what I should have done. But the other thing is, if I had waited until a book 2, it would have been an even longer time. And I didn't want to go so long without a Kickstarter. I needed to get this out. I needed to get it funded and get another win under my belt to help keep me going. And because because it would have been more than, I mean, it's already been more than a year, but it would have been in 2022. And so when I was looking at it, I'd like to launch a Kickstarter a year, because I did one in 2020, I do in 2021, then I could do one in 2022, but I didn't want there to be a whole year that I didn't do one. And I also had a thought of doing a quick starter, which was my initial idea originally. I'll do a quick starter where I shoot for a smaller goal. But when I began working on it, I was like, this is like so much work just to make a Kickstarter. I may as well just make it a full thing.
Right.
And also shoot for a higher goal as well, which maybe I shouldn't have done that either, but it's already going, so I got to see it through. But that's why. So, yeah.
For sure. Well, for sure. For starters, I can say that from what I'm seeing, your Kickstarter goal is not that much higher than your first one, because I think your first one was like 8. Your goal was 831. This one's 8.
Yes.
So it's not a dramatic shift.
Exactly. It's just slightly higher. So I thought, oh, it's doable. And 28 people helped me funded my first one, so I may just need around 28 people to fund this one. It's like, surely I can do that.
Definitely.
But it is good to, try to shoot for attainable goals. And this is a goal that I thought was attainable.
No, absolutely. I mean, compared to seeing other projects on Kickstarter that are asking for a much higher amount, but they're printing much smaller books. They're actually printing more issues than full volumes. This is totally reasonable, like more than reasonable, your funding goal. But no, go ahead.
Oh, what some people do is they do a Kickstarter for maybe each single issue,
right?
And it leads up to a trade paperback, and they might do a Kickstarter either for the trade paperback, or maybe with the 6th issue, you can get the 6th issue of the trade paperback, or however many issues it is. And maybe I should have done that too. Maybe I should have done like a chapter 1, but manga lends itself better to being in a trade anyway. And if people want to, read it monthly, they can just or read it every time a chapter comes out. They can just get on my Patreon or follow me on Webtoon or Tapacity.
No, yeah. No, I like that you print volumes. I prefer it. You get more story, which is fun because, you sit down and read it through it. I prefer definitely manga volumes and more books than just issues. So I'm glad that you're doing a full trade paperback. And I wanted to ask, what was I wanted to ask you. Forgot my question. I think it was about the book, and I guess for this new book, is there any difference in the paper, in the printing, other than the printer that you went with? Any changes compared to the first book, or is it all otherwise pretty much the same? Like in terms of the physical book itself.
I believe I said it earlier, but this printer uses higher quality paper. That's why it feels so much heavier, and I only added 10 extra pages, which I kind of left that out, but on top of being re-lettered and everything, I added 10 pages to one of the chapters that does alter the story slightly. But those 10 extra pages shouldn't be enough to make it feel as heavy as it does. It's obviously the new quality of paper, and what's funny is it's even a little thicker.
It is,
and I didn't notice it until I tried fitting it into a manga bag. I was at a Comic-Con, my first con after having the new book, and I tried to fit it into a manga bag. It's like, I can't get it to fit. Is it the right dimensions? And I told the printer about it, and he's like, well, I did them at these dimensions, and then so I compared. I have the books here, and as you can see, they fit seamlessly. But then when I look at them, let's see if I put the spines together. You can see one is clearly thicker than the other, and just that little bit of thickness, I couldn't fit it into the manga bag. And so now I don't have manga bags quite, but the printer now, he also, to prevent them from rubbing together and rubbing off color, he just sends them to me with these bags. They're kind of wrinkly and stuff, but
for sure. It's all good. Actually, what I noticed was the paper difference, because typically, like other manga that I've read, the paper is even different. This one's much smoother, thicker, and also I'm not worried about tearing it when I turn the pages, which is nice. So,
I would like to, even though like you probably appreciate the higher quality paper, I actually wanted to print it on cheaper paper, but like I'd like to do like a manga with newsprint, even though because regular manga is it on newsprint or something similar?
I guess it's more like a novel, if you're reading a regular novel, but it's I know they call it uncoated paper, so it's not as smooth. But I don't know what the actual paper is. I just think of regular books when they like that.
But he didn't do anything like that. Like, you'd be hard pressed to find any printer that does that. So
really,
I mean, I'll just do this, and but it's not. I like that it's not shiny. I know, like, really high quality paper that's shiny is really
like
reflective, and some people like that, but I don't like it for comics, because when I'm reading a comic, I don't want a glare on the page where I can't see the art or the lettering, and I have to tilt the page to not have a glare on it.
I wanted to ask, so you've been able to get back to cons, which I've been seeing on Instagram. You've been going to a lot of cons, which is awesome, and being able to sell your book. And then, as you can see here on the Kickstarter page, here's some people who have bought Cold Blooded. How has it been getting back into cons, and any ones you're planning to go
to? Well, I think I've been to about 3 cons.
Wow.
I went to a one-day con, Toy Con.
It's a lot of work.
Toy Con Live, I went to Medessa Anime, and I went to Anime Matsuri. And I think those were the 3 cons I went to. I didn't go to any others. No, I went to. No, that's not true. Yeah. Since the new book, I may have went to. I think I went to the Permian Basin Comic Con actually. Yeah, but that was way earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember if that was quite after I started printing the book with the new letter or not. Okay. But cons, I didn't really like doing cons initially, and I still kind of have mixed feelings about cons, just because if at the end of it I feel like I didn't do well, then like I feel terrible. But then if I feel like I did good, I feel really good about it. And I didn't really have like I mean, for me, cons are about the same they were before, except that I think I'm doing a little better because towards the end of the cons, before they all got shut down, in fact, cons are kind of why I went to Kickstarter to begin with, because you know, I believe, but prior to enrolling in Comics Launch, I believed all these myths about crowdfunding, and I thought, oh, it wasn't for me. You know, I think my book is good enough, and all I need to do is just go out there and sell it, and it'll sell itself. But I was very wrong about that. As I went to cons, it's not really. You have to work yourself to that point. Really, all that matters, you just need to get the sell. And when I went to these cons, and it seems like I was doing worse and worse, and I kind of just blamed the cons. Well, when I enrolled in Comics Launch, they have other courses, and so they had another one about other things like Comic Cons and Patreon and all that. And so I took that course, and it had some very useful things. I haven't applied them all, but I've applied about over half the things I learned from it. And I was going to go to the Permian Basin Comic Con for the first time in 2020, and I was like, man, I'm gonna do good at this con. I'm gonna do well. And then it got shut down, because the day it got shut down was the day Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, was just like, okay, we're doing the mandates.
Oh man! Oh.
we're not resisting it. We're, you know, and I was like, wow. So I had to put off doing. I was wanting to come back to cons with this new attitude, and it's like, I'm gonna do good. And so I finally got to test my mettle, and I did actually very well. I was able to break even at Permian Basin Comic Con.
Congratulations!
I didn't go to the postponed one. I couldn't make that, but I went to the next one here in 2021, and I was able to break even at that. I did well at ToyCon. ToyCon was the table was cheap, since it was just one day, and the people there were actually much easier to pitch to. But Anime Matsuri and Medessa Anime were much harder to sell. Like, I didn't do as well as those, but it wasn't for lack of trying. And it's, while, you know, your success at cons does, so for the most part, depend on you. It does kind of matter. The con does kind of matter, and the kind of people that are there.
Makes sense.
And I remember one of like Joey Panetta, he told me that he thinks that he didn't do as well at like anime related cons that were centered around anime. And I don't know, that may be true for me too, because those were both kind of anime centered cons. And I don't have I had like one fan art, but I don't have like a lot of prints and things that a lot of other booths have. And so maybe I should have more of that. You know, it's one of those things that like I don't really want to do, but I might have to do it if I want to be able to sell.
No, it definitely not makes sense, because I can, when I've last time I went to an anime con, Definitely a lot of the tables in the artist alley were selling fan art prints of anime, not so much original stuff. And
But
yeah, so people were looking
that's
for
also how like cons are in general. But
True.
I feel like the people maybe at anime cons might be a bit more picky. Like they'll go and buy like the fan art prints and stuff, but not as much original stuff. Which other like the cons like at Permian Basin Comic Con and the Toy Con, people were much more responsive to my pitches when I gave it to them. Which because at Anime Matsuri and Medessa Anime, it's like I give my pitches and people would just pass on it. It was like rejection after rejection. Giving my pitch and my log line.
For sure. Yeah, how does it I don't know, how do you keep yourself motivated, especially when it's happening and like you said, dealing with rejection after rejection? How do you just keep going and not want to just stop pitching in the middle of the con?
Well, I just I just had the attitude that my success depends on me, and if I want to be successful, I gotta put in the work. And also, I'm already here, and even though things may not go aren't necessarily going well or may not end well, I need to make the most of it that I can. I'm not just gonna give up. See it through, and sell as much as I can.
Definitely. How do you prepare, like nowadays, now that you've already gone to 3 cons, now that things have opened up a bit more, how do you prepare for a con? What is like, I don't know, top 3 things you would recommend or that you do to prepare for a con, like whatever you can think of?
One of the things I learned in Comics Launch that helps me a lot is cons are kind of like stressful just to pack and drive to and get all set up. But the one thing that will take a lot of stress off of that is if you have something called a con box, and just have a box with miscellaneous items that you might possibly need at the con.
Mm-hmm.
And this things like scissors, duct tape, markers, pencils, pens, whatever, and just have these things. So when you go to a con, you just grab this box, and it's just a lot less to keep track of. And then even if you don't need most of that stuff, if any of it, one of your table mates might, and you can do them a solid and be like, oh, I got you. You can use this.
That's a good idea. I like that.
Yeah. You definitely need a banner or something, something behind you, something to stick up and get people's attention. And there's debate as to whether your banner should market you or your comic. I've heard that you shouldn't put your comic or if you have a series or character on your banner. You should be marketing yourself first and foremost, just because you might not always be working on that series. In 2 years or so, you might be selling something else, and it's like, why would you have that on your banner? And then, whereas if you just market yourself, because in a way you are selling yourself to people before people buy your book. They don't know anything about your book; they're just talking to you. And then also, as far as like peers and industry people, people gotta get to know you, and if they remember your name and how to contact you, that's like probably a lot more important than them just remembering your series. And the other thing is make sure you have a good body of work or things to sell. Just because it looks kind of pitiful if you just have a one or two or just a few things.
Yeah.
Have enough that you can fill out that table and with a more variety of things. Maybe I don't quite have the variety down, but I have my book posters for the chapters and the single issues, some single issues, and that one fan art I have. And also, I started putting out my pages in a little portfolio thing for people to
Okay, that's a
and
good idea.
try to fill out the table as much as I can.
Yeah, you still, yeah. Oh, that's true. You're still working. Cold Blooded, by the way, is traditionally drawn, right?
Yeah, I draw it on paper and scan it, and my process has changed throughout.
Okay.
You know, I've done tones in Photoshop and Clip Studio, and then I've been doing traditional tones the last few chapters, and I really like those.
Like the cut and paste.
You just cut
Wow.
and stick it on there.
Is it easy to learn? I've heard mixed feelings about it. Is it, yeah, easy or hard to get used to toning traditionally?
I like it. I like it more than toning digitally, just because um, it's less work to do on the computer. And while it is, I guess, somewhat tedious, I really enjoy doing it. Like, I like the challenge because it gives you parameters. Like, so you buy, so like if you get the traditional tone off Amazon, you get like 4 sheets in a pack, right?
Yeah.
And depending on how much you buy, it's like that's what you got to work with, and these are the sets that you have. Whereas digital is so forgiving, it's like digital, you have too many options. You
Yeah.
can do too much, and you know you can make whatever you want, however much you want. You control the dots, and there's just no challenge behind it. It doesn't like force you to be creative.
Okay.
And I like the problem solving aspect of it. Is like, oh, I can stick this here and stick that there. And um, one thing I was doing with the tones that I can't do traditionally is like I was taking my eraser and feathering it out, and then feathering the tones to make it like fade out. But it's like I couldn't do that with traditional tones, so it was either just a hard cut, and then supposedly you can like scratch it or something, but I haven't really figured that out. So I
Okay.
don't do that. I just make a hard cut, and I was like, oh, you know, this is interesting.
For sure. Oh, to backtrack a little, since you've relettered the manga and you said you made your own font initially, but now you're using more conventional fonts. Where did you purchase yours, or did you find some free ones?
Um, I did purchase one that I used for one part of in one of the chapters, but not one of the main ones I used. So I still use Death Rattle. Uh, I used Death Rattle before, so I still use that one because that one does lend itself well. Um, and then the other one I use, it's not it's not Anime Ace. I don't think it's it might be the other ones. And there was this other font that I went to some comic website.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember what it's called, but there's this website I went to. You can buy lettering, fonts just for lettering.
Okay. Oh, what did I? Yeah, I've heard of Anime Ace. I can't think of the other ones. Is it Blambot? Is that where you went?
Oh yeah, I think it was Blambot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. What the font for Cold Blooded? Where did you get that one from? For the title, for Cold Blooded title.
Oh, well. I don't know what the font is for the logo because I had my friend Sergio Gallegos make the logo,
Oh,
and
nice.
Actually I don't know what font he used. Yeah, I'd
Okay.
have to ask him.
What about the? I guess I feel like I noticed about your new manga cover and the way you lettered it. It's definitely more similar to Shonen Jump. Makes me think of it. The Shonen Jump tankobons. What did you use for the number font for the first volume. It reminds me of Naruto. I don't know why.
Well, that's funny you mentioned that, and I'm glad it does make you think of Shonen Jump, because I mean that means it looks a lot more professional than it did before. Okay, I use wild words. That's what I use. I used wild words to letter the majority of the font, and that's a free font. I just Googled it, and I don't know where I downloaded it from, but I downloaded it from somewhere. And I remember because Wyatt Manga said that's like what he uses, wild words, and so I went out and got wild words.
For sure.
I felt like if I used Anime Ace, that would have been like, oh, because it has anime in it, like anime in the title,
like Comic Sans. Everyone uses Comic Sans for comics.
And for the 8th chapter, I wanted to use a font kind of reminiscent of like Times New Roman, but Times New Roman doesn't lend itself well to comic book lettering. So I bought a font called I think Holy Grail, and then Death Rattle. And then there was a 4th font I used, and I think that was just a built-in font I had. I'd have to go look it up.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I know these aren't terribly exciting questions. It's just, I know me personally, or hopefully other people who see this, I always have like little technical questions about that, like where did you find your fonts? What did you pick? Because you don't think about it when you decide, hey, I want to make a manga, I want to make a comic, but then you gotta go look for all that stuff. But it helps to like hear from other people where to find it. So that's why I like to get into those nitty gritty parts of it.
And I'm just looking to see what. Okay, yeah. And for like the robots, I use Air Millhouse Italic, which is just a built-in font. It's just imitating a font. When I said that I had someone letter for me before, I didn't like everything they did. I kind of chose a font that imitated the font they used for robots, and that's kind of how I modeled it after that.
Okay.
And then there's a font I use for the beginning of the chapters, and I also modeled that after what they would do. And that font is okay.
Yeah, actually, this is helpful for me because, like what you mentioned about the robots, I've been working on something, and there's a part where the characters are talking over the radio, and I was trying to find a good like electronic looking text. So thank you for the tip about the robots. That might be one I have to check out.
Yeah, no problem. And I'm not like good with, even though I'm gonna letter my own book from now on. I'm not a graphic design person, and I feel like lettering kind of delves into that. And I'm not really good with like figuring out what font works good where. So it might be a good idea just to look at other books to get ideas and look for something similar. And one thing you can do is you can like screenshot a text or something, and you can like search the font for that, but you may not get the exact font. Yeah, cool. I've been able. I've did that. I don't know that I used any fonts that I found from it, but that could be something you could do. You could just do like, I don't know, Google search for a font or something. I don't remember the website that I used.
Cool. Okay. I forgot to. I don't want to spoil the book, but what I do like about this version that I have, I love that you showed a lot of your early concept art for different scenes of Cold Blooded, which is one of my favorite things in general about independent artists is seeing them develop over time, but also hopefully getting insight into their process. So guys, when you get this book, you get to see some behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, and I include that just because, you know, in manga, that's what they, in between chapters, they include like sketches and bits from the creator. And so that's just why I did that. And it's good to tell your story and let people in on it and know about it.
No, definitely. Yeah, it's a great idea.
And like with American comics, they do sometimes they just like they have variants. Sometimes they might release like a what do they call it? Kind of like for movies, have a theatrical. They have a theatrical cut, and then they have director's cut. It's like a director's cut, but for the comic. But manga doesn't really have that because, in a way, the manga is already the director's cut because it always has extra content in it. So I don't really need to do that. Okay, I use Mundane Gothic for the to be continued and chapter titles.
Let me see. Okay, let me see. Is that in the table? No, not in the table of contents. In the actual chapters. I'm looking for the to be continued at the end. Oh, cool. Okay. I can't show you guys last page. That spoils it, but I see it. I found it.
And it's funny that you said reminded you of Naruto because let me see if I need to find this copy of Naruto I have.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I wonder if these are like the first ones.
I did not mean to click
that. I had this box laying around with some books in it. But I also, how I said that there are some graphic design changes that I made to the cover and the spine as well as the back. And I I had a volume 1 of Naruto.
Okay.
And I pretty much modeled the lettering and design from that, off of that onto my book. So that was just funny that you said it reminded me of Naruto because I kind of lifted the design on the cover with the author.
Yeah, I mean that's a good idea.
Yeah, and I took that from what I learned from that one author, the other creator that I said showed me a trick with dropping a page in Photoshop and lowering the opacity to get the letter. That was a good little tip that I picked up. Well, I don't know what I did with that box, but
no worries.
I wanted to show them side by side because it would have been funny. But also, I might have it on my computer somewhere. But was there anything else? You have another question for me?
Not off the top of my head. No, I think that's everything. Is there anything else you wanna add? Want to say? Go for it.
Oh man, anything I want to add? Well, on the 8 backers, $336. That's 38% of my funding goal with 9 days to go. If you're on the fence, you can always click Remind Me, the little bookmarker on the Kickstarter page, and it'll remind you 72 hours, 48, and 24 hours. And if I'm not mistaken, I think you'll also get the updates, the notifications of any updates I make. I'm not sure. But feel free to just look at my project, watch the Kickstarter trailer, scroll through my page and read it. And I have videos up I made a whole video while I'm re-releasing my manga. It's like 17 minutes, but it's on the Kickstarter page.
It is. It's down here. Let me scroll through. Yeah.
And I suppose I could go ahead and say what my 30% is, but let me check it. Check what it is, because I think I know what it is, but I don't want to get it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Images. Live views.
Wait, was that all, or were you gonna add something else?
No, I'm looking. Okay, basically, at 30% for $55, you can get a PDF, physical copy of Cold Blooded, both variants, and your choice of one of the 9 posters from the chapter covers in my book. And that's the pledge that I haven't added yet, but I'll probably update it a little bit after this stream.
Great.
Yeah. And I'll send an update and send an email sometime tomorrow about it. I have an email list. When you sign up, you can download the first 3 chapters of Cold Blooded for free. And so you can sign up, and there should be a link somewhere on my Kickstarter page for that.
And definitely, and yeah, I forgot to add on to this early, the newsletter. Perry does update it very regularly. It's one of the things I actually look forward to in the morning is when I'm checking my email. I'm glad to see there's a newsletter, because it's just something fun versus the usual stuff that's in my inbox. So he's very good at updating his newsletter regularly.
And I plan to keep it up to the best of my ability after Kickstarter ends, and sustain that. That's a key element. If you're a creator and you don't have an email list, you should start one. And the idea with emails, you need to send them regularly. And it's like when I was at college, I was in a ministry called Chi Alpha. Mm-hmm. And in Chi Alpha, there were leaders and there were resource leaders, and there are small group leaders. And small group leaders, they are resource leaders. Basically, the way they made a living is they treated it like they were a missionary. Mm-hmm. They had to go out and get support to people that pledge them money, more like a Patreon type of thing, where they send them money every month, and that will comprise their budget. And they had email lists, but they always lose supporters over the summer, because this was out of college, and like summer usually was slow, might be non-existent, but they're probably not sending as many emails. Okay. And I bet if they just had kept sending emails, they probably wouldn't lose near as many supporters, if any at all. And a lot of people might have reservations about emails. Is, well, I don't want to bother the person. I don't want to, or I'm not making anything. I don't have anything to share. Well, if you don't want to waste people's time, don't. Share something of value. If you want people to support you and back your project, you have to give them something first in return. You have to give them something free. Just like when you go to a grocery store and people offering free samples, try before you buy. That's what your email list is. You offer something of value, something going on, even if nothing's going on at all. You need to send something. You can come up with something. You can share or talk about something that you like that pertains to whatever it is you're doing.
Definitely. That's all great advice too. I actually remember one of the newsletters you sent. It was after the creator Berserk had died. You just kind of sharing your thoughts about it, which I thought, like, that's value you're adding. Even if it's not specifically about Cold-Blooded, it was just interesting to read. So yeah, even things like that are worthwhile reading.
Everyone has a story to tell, just like I'm on here sharing my story. You can share your story as well. You can share many stories through email, as well as in person at cons, and they're a very powerful thing.
Awesome. Great. Well, I don't want to hold you up anymore for the evening. Again, everyone go support this Kickstarter. You can read Cold-Blooded for free online. As like Perry said, try before you buy. It's new, it's updated. It's a really good book. You're getting something high quality, which is amazing, and it'll get you ready for volume 2, which I'm looking forward to coming out. And yeah, I mean, have a great evening. Thanks so much for being on, Perry, and good luck with everything, especially as the year comes to an end.
All right, thanks. Yeah, you too.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Yeah. And thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you all next time.